All right. So first, thank you very much, Jolene, for making this possible. And thank you everybody for joining. Jolene gave me a list of the potential attendees. I understand we don't have everybody, but if you have any questions specific to your business, I got a chance to look through the different businesses that we have represented here. So to have an idea of what kind of questions you may have. So I will hopefully address them during my presentation. And if I don't, please let me know and at the end or during the presentation, whenever, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. All right. So if we don't have any other questions or anything, I will just get started. Do you want me to get started, or we're waiting for anyone else?
I think it would be best for us to just go ahead and get started. We are recording the presentation, so anybody that was unable to join us this afternoon will still be able to view the presentation on our website. We'll try to get it edited and posted within a day or two.
Perfect. Thank you. So the name of the company is Talent Puerto Rico. I've been doing this, like Jolene said, for 5 years. I was based out of Minnesota, until July of this year. July of this year, I moved to Puerto Rico. Last year, I spent about half the time here, half the time in Minnesota. And this year, we decided to move here as you know, the biggest issue right now is finding the people. So being here was very important for us, and that's why I moved here for now. So I'm enjoying nice warm weather here after the little hurricane that we had. So that's where I'm at. At the end of the presentation, I was going to do it at the beginning, but I think at the end of the presentation would be better if I give you kind of an update of what we've been seeing in the last year or so. As I'm sure everybody knows, these last couple of years have been crazy in many ways, and especially for us here in terms of workforce and workforce availability and everything else. So first, just as you know, the biggest challenge right now for workforce is high demand and inadequate supply. I think especially for people, companies located in rural areas is definitely more difficult to find people, because if you can't find them locally, you have to bring them from the outside. And the outside means the next town over, or as far as Puerto Rico or somewhere else. In my experience, when I started doing this 5 years ago, we were working with companies that were in these very small communities that they couldn't really grow anymore because there were no people in the town or the towns around. Right now, under the present conditions, I mean, we are really working with a wide range of companies in different locations because of the current situation. So the solutions to meeting your workforce needs, obviously, first is improve retention so you don't lose so many people once you get them. Given that most companies are right now offering bonuses to move and everything, that makes it difficult. And with so much options available to workers, it's also difficult. The second one is to tap the local workforce, which I'm sure you all are doing and being very creative to try to get the people. And then the third one is to tap the external workforce. I think in the time that I've been doing this, the idea when we started this business was not to recruit specifically from Puerto Rico. In fact, we changed the name to Talent Puerto Rico recently because originally it was really to look for talent pools in high unemployment areas to move to small communities with low unemployment. But we found that through time, Puerto Rico has been a very good place for us to do this work. One of the things that we found when we recruit people from other states within the United States, the retention is lower than if we bring people from Puerto Rico. I think because they are more mobile, they have more people that they know, they can always just drive back to their home, and it's more of an issue. So, and we've been here in Puerto Rico for since before Hurricane Maria. So we went through all the issues with the hurricane and the aftermath, and people wanted to leave in droves right after, to where we are now, where it's even here right now it's difficult to find people. So why tap an external workforce? So there are different reasons. I'm sure you are familiar with this. We want to meet production demands, bring overtime to acceptable levels, use temporary labor really for what it's meant to be, which is just for peaks of production, or to manage seasonality, reduce turnover, enhance morale. I think one of the issues right now is in some companies, because of the issues that we have with workforce, a lot of employees are frustrated because they get people that come in and leave, they come in and leave, and they end up doing all the work for everybody. And that goes from the frontline employees all the way up to management. And then productivity is very difficult to maintain good productivity when you don't have a consistent workforce. So why Puerto Rico? Why is Puerto Rico a good place to recruit? So number one, all Puerto Rican citizens are also U.S. citizens. There is a skilled and motivated workforce here. I mean, there is, just like everywhere, I think you have the whole gamut of people in terms of motivation and skills. When you tap into a market that has more available people, and if you do your screening work right, which I believe we do, then you can get the better candidates than if you go and try to recruit from a place that is way under indexed in terms of unemployment. When it used to be, I mean, I've been to a few job fairs in some of these small towns, and the people that showed up a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, were people that didn't look like they wanted to get a job. And the concern that a lot of employers expressed to me at that time was that a lot of those people were people, the low unemployment was so low that the people who were looking for a job were people that wanted a job just for a couple of weeks to buy a TV or something, and then they would leave. I can't imagine how it is now, that it's even more difficult. So my hats off to you, all of you guys, for being resourceful and looking for different ways to meet your needs. Then in Puerto Rico, we find still a lot of people willing to relocate and to relocate permanently to the United States. We have done both formats in terms of bringing people to the U.S. To work as temporary workers, and also to work as permanent employees. Right now, the situation is such that it has always been easier to recruit for temporary employment in terms of volume than it is for permanent employees. But we can still, we're still recruiting permanent employees, but we can do both. English language, I think in terms of English, we can find good English-speaking people that have worked in the United States, that have experience working in manufacturing in the United States and in other areas. And then we also, there is a lot of people here that don't speak very much English. One of the pieces of advice that I give all my clients is, if you are having, or you anticipate having issues with workforce for the long run, it would be a good idea to look at ways to diversify your workforce to where you can take people that don't speak only English, so you can take people that are bilingual with Spanish. And not just from the perspective of recruiting in Puerto Rico. In my experience in the United States, people that don't speak English, especially people that speak only Spanish, they don't have as much opportunities in terms of options for employment. And they end up working in the fields, or they end up working in meat processing plants, or jobs like that. So if you have a good manufacturing job and you are set up to take employees that don't speak English, then you open up to a large pool of candidates within the United States, because there is Spanish-speaking people all over the United States now. But still, we in the website that I looked through from the companies attending, I saw that most of them are requiring English, and we can find English speaking people. For people that work in the front line, we can find people that speak 60, 65%, 70%. For people that in higher levels, more higher technical levels, that they're required to have better English, we can find them. And then the other reason to recruit in Puerto Rico is because even though it is outside the U.S., they're still very used to the U.S. culture. In a lot of ways, Puerto Rico is a mixture between the U.S. culture or more Latin American culture, but they understand that they know the American culture very well. I don't know if there are any questions up to here.
So far, you're doing a great job, great information. Thank you.
All right.
And we do ask our guests if they want to put any questions in the chat box. Myself and Missy will be watching, and we'll have some time at the end as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Then what's our solution? How do we work our process? So when we start, when we sign a contract with a client, the first thing we do is we do our homework in terms of researching everything that somebody that would want to work there would want to know. Like if I wanted to move to Buffalo to work, I would want to know more than just what the job pays and what it is, what's the job description. I want to know what's the town, what's the weather like, where are the availability of stores. A lot of people here want to be near Walmart, for example. They want to know what's the school system like. We also look to see how welcoming the town is to people from other cultures, things like that. So we do all that information gathering, and we make a presentation based on that. We have all the information from our client in terms of what the job is, what they're looking for, what are the opportunities for growth within the company, what's the need for overtime. And now with all the issues with supply chain, we want to make sure that if we bring somebody to work with a client, that they are not having big supply chain issues, because then that means that the work hours are going to be all over the place. And for people that are moving here expecting to make a certain amount of money, if they don't get the hours that they're looking for, then they may decide to move somewhere else. We also look for companies that treat very well their employees, that they really care about their employees' well-being, and that work with their employees to make sure that they are comfortable and that they have everything they need to do their job. We've unfortunately have worked with some companies that have issues in their leadership style, and that usually leads to very high turnover, and that's something that nobody wants right now, obviously. So once we've done all this research, we make this presentation, and then from the start, when we post the positions here in media, in social media and newspapers. Sometimes we do radio ads too. And once we have, and then we also have a relationship with the different organizations, local organizations, that also allow us to sometimes make presentations, and they refer leads to us. So once we get the candidates contacting us, the way that we see our job from the start is managing their expectations. We truly believe that if what they find when they get to wherever we're sending them is exactly what we told them, and they made this decision based on what we told them, then the success rate is going to be much higher. And that's one of the biggest compliments we get very often from our candidates, and that is that we are very straightforward, and we tell them exactly what we see and what they're going to find, and we don't overpromise, and we don't underpromise either. We try to be objective and give them all the information that they will need. Usually, especially now with the situation the way it is, most people, when they're recruiting, they're selling their jobs, they're selling their company. We consciously try to stay away from that so that we don't fall into this exaggeration of little things to try to convince people. On the other hand, too, is we are very picky in terms of people being on time, people looking presentable when we interview, their communication with us, and from the first interaction that we have with them, we also try to be very professional and very consistent in terms of our timing and the flow of our process. And I mentioned this because when we partner with a client to recruit, it's very important that they also help us to keep this tempo in terms of the process. Because if we're going at a certain speed and then all of a sudden there's a break because our clients don't have the availability to do interviews or something, then we lose a lot of candidates. And so the next thing once the first thing we do is we do just a phone interview where we just make sure that they meet the basic requirements for the job. And then after that, we move them to a presentation / interview. So the next meeting is a virtual. We were doing them in person before the hurricane, and before COVID. And then during COVID, we started doing them all virtual, and it has worked well for us. And so we continue to do virtual still now. So we do a virtual interview, but we first start with a presentation. So all the information that we gather in the presentation that we made, we give it to them. And after we do the presentation, we ask them if they're still interested. If they're interested, then we move on and do the interview. And then on the interview, we ask them, obviously, all the questions related to the job, but we also try to evaluate what is the likelihood of them adapting to a new environment, what is their attitude towards change, and how are they feeling towards working with other people, especially for us too, because we work with them a lot, and we don't want to, we try to work with people that are really wanting to move ahead and are motivated. So if they pass this screening with us, this is a second screening, then we recommend them to our client for a final interview. And the final interview is done by someone in our clients, whoever is going to be making the decision to hire or not. And the way we do it is we do it through a 3-way phone call. And the reason why we don't do a video conference too is because here in Puerto Rico, telecommunications aren't very good. So it's tough to have a 3-way video conference that usually gets very glitchy and difficult. So we just do a 3-way phone call with our client on the line, the candidate, and us. And what we do is we just facilitate, we help if there is any issues or questions about just communication from English and Spanish, and also to make sure that the message that the candidate gets from the client is the same that we are giving. And if there's any discrepancy, we clarify it right there and then, so that there is no confusion or misperception. Then after that, the client makes a decision whether they want to hire the person or bring them on board temporarily, depending on what they're looking. And you are not under any obligation to hire any of the candidates that we bring to you. So the decision is all yours. And then if you decide that you do want to or make an offer to the candidate, then we help in all the process after that in terms of getting their drug screen done, and getting the information that you would need to run the background check. And then once that is done, we start the relocation. A lot of the time, well, for the longest time, we have been doing the drug screening in the United States once they arrived, and because that made the whole process a lot easier to just use the normal processes for drug screening that our clients were using. But right now, what we found under the normal conditions now is that there are more people that don't pass the drug screen, even though we tell them from the start that they are going to have to pass to be able to work. So in the last about 2 months ago, we made a change now to where we do the drug screenings here. But we can do them either way, depending on the needs. And then we do the relocation process. The relocation, for the relocations, we usually either rent a house where we keep them for a couple of weeks, or we have them stay at a hotel. And we pay for their flight. We pick them up at the airport. We take them to the housing, whichever it is. It's a rental place or a hotel. And we give them transportation for 2.5 weeks about. To or from work, we take them to do the shopping. We take them to whatever they need. This is for relocation for direct hire employees. For employees that go temporarily, we provide transportation throughout the engagement. And then once and for direct hire employees, we work with them, and we have one person that is dedicated to this area that we're working. Let's say that we're going to Buffalo, we have one person dedicated to Buffalo, or more depending on how many people we're bringing. And so one of the main responsibilities of this person is to make sure that there is housing available for these people. If not in the town that they're going to be working in, at least somewhere at least 30 minutes away, or maybe at the most 40 minutes away. We have been in the situation where we cannot recruit for clients because there is just no housing near where they're at. But that's something that we research when we do our homework at the beginning before we get started. And then, so we have the people, we bring them to you for orientation, and then we help them open bank accounts. We help them if they're going to bring their families to connect them with the local schools and give them any support they need in terms of their relocation. After 2 weeks, on the first day of work, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. We just made a change recently that we were given the way it worked. I'll explain, because we just changed this, and I want to continue with this change. We were giving them on the first day of work, we were giving them 2 bonuses. One was a housing bonus, and the other one is a car bonus. The housing bonus was usually about $1,500. And that was to help them pay for a deposit and the first month's rent. We have found that a lot of the people that are wanting to relocate, they feel anxious to have housing for sure only for 2 weeks. So we have changed that to where now we offer them 3 months free housing. We house them for 3 months, and during those 3 months, we let them know that the expectation is that they're going to save money so that they can make the payment of their deposit and first month's rent at the end of the 3 months. And in terms of cost for our clients, the cost goes up a little bit, but not very much. We're charging $1,800, and we supply the housing for them. So I hope I didn't confuse everybody with that, but I can clarify if there's any doubts. And we still provide the transportation for them to work for only 2 weeks, because we do ask that you pay them a bonus of $500 to buy a car on the first day of work. Obviously, they're not going to buy a $500 car. That's just to help them pay the deposit on a vehicle. And so the goal is to have them have their own vehicle within 2 weeks, so that we don't need to be transporting them, but we will still provide the housing for the 3 months. Okay. And then after that, during those 3 months, we help them find the permanent housing. And at the end of that, we help them with their move. We also help them connect with some local organizations. We've been able to get them sometimes donations of furniture, donations of coats in the winter, and things like that. So we try to help them either connecting them or going directly and getting things for them. So that's one way we help them too. And then after the 3 months, then they're moved out, they're in their own house, they have the vehicle, and then we just do ongoing support because usually they come to us with questions about work and other things. And depending on the client, some clients want us to participate after that in terms of whenever they have issues, we try to help them. If they have issues at work, we try to help, or we just report that to the client and then they deal with it depending how the client wants. So that's how the process works. I don't know if anybody has any questions up to here.
That was a lot of great information. I know I was jotting down some notes and I may have a couple questions. I imagine you're going to go into a little bit more about the client expectation then next.
Yes.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
Thank you. So the key to success for us, the success factors are, first is intelligent screening, which we have gotten very good at in terms of figuring out whether somebody is really intending to move there permanently or not. In the other one is in the relocation, make sure that everything goes smoothly. And then the other one is building trust with our recruits by doing what we say we're going to do. And one of the things that I want to highlight now is that in terms of turnover, the turnover that we see in the recruits that we bring is usually tied to the turnover that our clients see. It's lower than what, it's always been lower than what they experience with local recruits or recruits from any other source. But it's still, if you have, and if you're in an industry that has very high turnover, then you will see higher turnover with our recruits too. We have had clients that have very, very low turnover because they don't have very high turnover in their regular operation, and with us, it's even better. And so, and the success for us in terms of our clients is that we bring them quality candidates, low turnover, and because we're a small company, we can really focus on and tailor our processes and work to our customers. So this whole process that I just described, that's just the general process. But if you have specific needs for specific people, or we have had clients that have housing themselves, so we can adapt to whatever the needs and the circumstances are. So in terms of the value and the cost, like I said, the housing support right now is 3 months, so it's about, and we're charging $1,800. The auto bonus is paid out on the first day of work, and that's $500. And then our fee for recruiting and relocation for frontline employees is $7,500. And we believe that, considering that we're doing recruiting and relocation, and we are right now under 20% of the annual income for the employees, it's a really good deal. I don't know if you have any questions there. The other thing that is important is that we, from the start, we try to also really partner with our clients in that we offer them a warranty. So if a recruit doesn't stay in their job for at least 1 month, we replace that recruit for free. If a candidate or the recruit doesn't stay, it stays within 30 days and 90 days, we replace them for $2,000. And if they leave after 90 days, we figure that's more of an opportunity for the client, so we don't replace them. And we only replace one, so we don't replace replacements. So here's some of the questions that I usually get asked when I make these presentations. One is, how big is our company? We're about, because we're changing constantly, but about 20 employees within recruiting and relocation people. We have brought, in terms of how many recruits we have brought from PR, I would say last year we brought about 300 people And the year before was even higher. I think it was like 350 people. This year, it has been slower, just because of the whole situation with unemployment being low here in Puerto Rico too. How long does it take to get started? If we sign a contract today, we can start, and everything goes well, we can start bringing people usually within a month. About English, I already spoke about that, so I won't go over that again. And then the last one is, how well do they adapt to the winter? In our experience, people that go there from here, they either love the winter because they have never seen the snow and they enjoy it, or they don't like it very much, but because they're going there and they're focused on working, they don't mind it.
Federico, we do have a question in the chat from Dave Kelly.
Yes.
He said, have you had experience working with municipalities and cities with this form of recruitment?
To recruit for them?
Yep.
No, I have not. But I can tell you, David, that we have a lot of candidates that have administrative experience and accounting experience. And because most of our focus has been in manufacturing, we have not tapped into that, but there is plenty of candidates for those kinds of positions. I hope that answered his question.
Oh, yeah. So I guess my question is a little bit kind of an interesting one. So yeah, I guess one of the things the city's kind of interested in, the city of Buffalo, is this type of recruitment, not so much for the city itself, but really as a tool that we can turn around and kind of push for a lot of the businesses already in the city. So I was just wondering if you have, just from personal experience, seen other cities that really partner with this kind of recruitment tool with other businesses as kind of like a partnership between multiple parties, I guess.
Yeah, the only one that I can see similar to this, I work with the Chamber of Commerce of blanking out now, in Lake Superior, north of the Loop. What is it? I forget. I'm sorry. It's on Lake Superior, almost on the border with Canada. There's a lot of hotels there, and they needed people. So and there were some hotels that needed just 1 or 2 or 3 people, but they were all hotels. So that worked for us because we recruited people to work as in the hotels in different capacities, but they were all hotel jobs. We have never worked in a situation where we hire for different positions for different employees. And I don't think that I would do that, because that gets very difficult, because the way that we do the work, each business, we have to go very much in depth, and it doesn't make very much sense for us to do that for just 1 or 2 employees. In fact, one thing that we do, I didn't mention, one thing that we ask from our clients is a commitment of at least 10 people.
Federico, did you have more slides that you wanted to share before we get into the question and answer?
Yes, I do have one more slide.
Perfect.
And that is,
then I have a couple questions as well.
That is current trends. So things have changed a lot, especially this year changed a lot. What happened was last year, in 2020 with COVID, I thought everything was going to come to a halt, and it was exactly the opposite. We just got more and more requests for people and more people that wanted to go places. 2021 was the same most of the year, but towards the end of the year, we started noticing a slowdown on the candidate side. And then at the beginning of this year, it just became more and more difficult. One of the things that happened is that there is a lot of other people recruiting in Puerto Rico. That's one. And then the other is that the same issue that happened in a lot of the United States happened here in Puerto Rico too, where a lot of people decided to retire because of COVID, and a lot of people just got out of the workforce. So now we have less people in Puerto Rico and more people recruiting here. And one of the things that you need to keep in mind if you're going to be recruiting in Puerto Rico is that when you recruit here in Puerto Rico, your competition in terms of pay and benefits and everything is not who you have next door or the next town over. You're competing with all the United States. One thing we do a good job with our candidates is explaining to them about the cost of living of where they're going. That's part of what the research that we do, and the cost of housing and rentals and everything, because you can't compare a job in New Jersey. They're going to get paid more money per hour, but then their living expenses are going to be much higher. So, but that's something that we've been having to do. And then the other thing is that just in terms of response, I mean, 3 years ago, we advertised a position, a frontline position for manufacturing. We would get, I don't know, well, it depends, but we would get plenty of candidates, more than we needed. Right now, it's slow, and it depends very much on the pay, and people are pickier. And the other thing that we've noticed is that through the process, so from the time they contact us to when they travel, we usually lose, I mean, it used to be that for 100 candidates that we would get, we would bring maybe 10 or 8, and some of them would filter out, some of them would filter themselves out. Right now, we are bringing from 100 candidates, maybe 2. And so it's gotten and a lot of that is people going to other jobs because somebody just came in and offered them. One of the things that we see is that a lot of companies that are recruiting here, they just take whomever and they don't do very much screening. And we have not changed our policies in terms of screening and the quality of the candidates that we're looking for. And that's why we also have less people. And one of the things that happens to us often is that we have somebody going through the process, and somebody comes in and says, you know what, if you want a job, you can come tomorrow. Don't worry about background. Don't worry about anything. And they're gone. So that's what we're competing with. But on the other hand, also there are people that appreciate the thoroughness. They also want to feel comfortable with who they're working with and everything. And those are the people that stay through the end. And one other thing, and so that's just in terms of the current trends and the difficulty to find people. Just a couple of things that I didn't mention is that we recently also started recruiting people with higher technical skills, like people like maintenance technicians in the mechanical or electrical or HVAC, and some even a little higher than that, some engineering, basic engineering jobs, things like that. So we have availability to that, and the structure for that is similar, but it's different. The fees are a little higher, obviously, and they're tied to the pay. And we can talk about that if somebody's interested in that kind of a recruit. But we provide those services, and also, like I mentioned, if people need workforce more in a hurry, I would recommend going to something like temporary for now. And one thing that we did with a client, and it worked okay, it didn't work great, but it worked okay, was to bring people under a temporary scheme and then offer them a job at the end of 4 months. And then I would say about 50% of them stayed after 4 months. But that was last year, so I don't know what the percent would be this year. Everything is changing. And that is the last slide that I have on my presentation.
Well, thank you so much. This was really great information. If you don't mind, maybe we'll have you stop sharing screen, and if anybody wants to turn their video on. I did have a couple of questions that I thought we could cover here. I'm gonna do like this so that we're all kind of here on the same page. A couple of the things that you mentioned. So looking back at my notes, you had clients have the opportunity to either do a direct hire or to do a temporary scheme with Talent PR. And I did hear you mention that the temporary, you mentioned 4 months. Is that sort of a hard and fast number for a temporary position is 4 months?
No, that's what we did with the client that we did temporary hiring, but it could be whatever length.
Okay, so that's kind of up to the client.
Yes.
I also heard you mention that there is a expectation for housing. You help with finding their housing. And one of the questions I have is about like rental history. If the candidates don't have any rental history, how is it that you're able to help them find rental housing?
That's a very good question. One thing that we do is we, the person that we have on location, we call them relocation coordinators. And their main job is to build relationships with landlords and apartment complex managers. And when we explain the situation to the landlords and the landlords see the value in working with us because we're going to bring them clients, we usually get them to be more flexible. And the other thing too is that when we have a contract to bring 20 people, for example, if somebody doesn't stay and they leave, then we can find somebody else to take that property. So
okay, and that leads me into my next question when I'm trying to picture what the candidates' expectations are for housing. And then what is the percentage of candidates that do bring family and are looking for more than a 1-bedroom apartment or an efficiency apartment?
I would say that in terms of expectation, that varies greatly. There are people that want to spend most of their money in housing, and some people that want to spend as little money as possible in housing. So that one is a tough one. But they usually just the majority of the people, what they want is something that's affordable, without going to something very cheap and in bad shape.
Right.
A lot of times they partner up with somebody that they usually when we bring people, we bring groups of 2 or 3 people, and a lot of times they partner together and they move together to a house. Even if they're going to bring their families, just while they get settled, they partner, knowing that in the future somebody's going to move out with their families and things like that. I would say in terms of people bringing their families, it used to be about 50%. Right now, I would say about 30%.
Okay. And so then just to give a little brief overview, you mentioned that as far as the fees that are associated, the client is expected to provide a housing support amount of $1,800. That's a one-time, that's after 3 months, and that's per candidate. You mentioned a $500 auto bonus that they receive on day 1, that's per candidate. And then the relocation and recruitment fee of $7,500 per candidate. So for the $9,800 total for the candidate. And then you're asking that there's a minimum of 10 that the client is wanting to employ.
Yes.
So just to make that clear for the clients that are listening, or the potential clients that we've just sort of covered those numbers one more time, we have to cover the cost of Talent PR, and you have to make it affordable for you to relocate them. And that includes their airfare.
Yes.
And the support that you provide to them in finding housing and transportation for 2 weeks.
Yes, the cost that you mentioned is that the total cost for the customer. Everything else, the transportation, everything, we pay for that.
Okay, fantastic. And that's a minimum of 10. Is that number flexible at all, or is that a pretty hard and fast number?
It is flexible in that if somebody says, you know what, I don't know you, I'm going to ask you for 4 people, 5 people. I would say, if you have the need for more and you want to try me with 5 people, that's fine. In the understanding that if I bring the 5 people and you're happy with me, then we're going to get to 10 or 20 or more, which is the way it usually goes.
That's fair. That's fair. And I appreciate that.
So it's not like we put it on the contract that they need to bring 10 people with us. And it has happened in some instances that people ask me for 10 people and then things change for whatever reason. And we don't hold them to that. It's not a contractual thing.
Another question that I had thought of, and this was sort of at the beginning of your presentation, was regarding trying business that maybe is not currently bilingual, how could that business become more accessible and become more bilingual? If that's not something they're already doing, can you give some suggestions of what would work best for a company that may be bringing in non-English speaking candidates or minimum English speaking?
Yes, I can give you my take on it. I actually offered one of my customers to work with them at no cost to try to develop a plan that we could then bring to other clients, but we haven't done it yet. My take on it is that you first need to start by training your supervisors to be able to work with different cultures. You need to have at least 1 or 2 supervisors that are bilingual. And you need to have at least 1 person in your HR department that is bilingual. Then you need to look at the jobs that you have and the job descriptions and figure out which ones are the ones that would be easier to move to a non-English speaker. If your positions require a lot of instructions, you don't want to have to translate all those instructions to start with. But things that people can, but the other thing too is that you're not going to go from, I wouldn't recommend going from only English to non-English at all. So you would slowly do a process where you require less and less and less. And the other thing, because once, the other thing that you have to take into consideration is that people that are going to work for you, even if they don't speak very much English, they can understand a lot more than they can speak. So in terms of instructions and being able to work with computer screens and things like that, they can learn that quickly. So if you're willing to teach them and spend the time doing that, then that can work too. But you do still, I would recommend look at your job descriptions and figure out which ones are the better suited for people that have a lower English skill level. And then start with those. And then once you start with those, you start building a group of people and a culture of a bilingual environment. Then you can start lowering it more and looking at different areas and then going from there.
Okay. Now you did mention it would be important to have a supervisor or an HR that is bilingual. If a company does not have that, would they be able to work with a translator on a part-time basis or on a temporary basis as they're going through the hiring process and kind of adjusting to this new idea?
Yes, but I have seen it done, and it's not very efficient. But yes, it can be done. My thought is, instead of hiring a translator, it won't cost you that much more to hire an HR generalist and a supervisor.
Right. Absolutely. I understand that. I appreciate your flexibility though on some of these ideas as well. One of the questions that was in the chat box was asking about a minimum number, which we already addressed. One of our guests had to leave early, but we are recording this. We've got about 10 minutes left. I wonder if there's anyone else that's in the audience that wants to ask a question. You can certainly unmute yourself. And now would be a good time to ask that question in person.
Jolene?
Yes, Missy.
There is one question that is what are typical pay expectations of your candidate for entry-level positions? I know she's the one that had to leave, but maybe if we could answer if she has the time to come back.
Good, great question.
That's a great question. Just for starting positions for first shift, I would say at least $18.50 an hour. If you pay more than that, then it's better. And then if you have needs for second shift people and you have a good shift differential, a lot of the people that are looking for jobs from Puerto Rico, they want those second shift work, second or third shift. So it's been a good marriage for us with a lot of clients because what they have the toughest time finding is second and third shift employees. And for us, because they pay more, then we can find more people.
Great.
So for second shift, the second shift, I have companies that pay right now $21 an hour to start on manufacturing in second or third shift, and those are good offers.
And again, I guess I'd like to just remind the listeners today and the potential clients that one of the things you mentioned was that if the individual candidate leaves the position in less than 30 days, then you will replace that candidate.
Mhm.
And if they leave between 30 and 90 days, then you will replace them at the rate of $2,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so that leaves a little room for, of course, maybe not everyone's going to be a perfect fit every time, but you're already planning for that in advance. And so I know that a lot of our industrial manufacturers here in Wright County are already offering hiring bonuses for new employees. And so I think in some ways, the fees to recruit, relocate, and provide the housing and the $500 auto bonus, you know, in some ways, if they're looking at what their hiring bonuses are and the starting wages, it's a math problem they have to figure out if that's going to work for them or not. But I recognize in my line of work that we are seeing just so many businesses struggling to find employees and unable to start that second line or a third shift. And so, you know, that's why I brought you here this afternoon. And I just thought if there's any one business that we're able to help in Wright County, that's great. If we can help more businesses, that's even better. I wonder if any of the candidates, or I'm sorry, if any of the potential clients wanted to speak with a case study that's been successful. Do you provide any opportunities for potential clients to talk to other businesses that have done this before to kind of get an idea from the client how it went?
Yes. You mean like referrals from people that have
Yes.
worked with me? Yes, of course, I do.
Okay, so that would be available if one of our listeners or someone who listens to the recording wants to talk to you about referrals.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, that's great. I was going to quickly check if there were any other questions I missed. I know Missy's been watching them. We talked about pay. We talked about minimum number. Okay, great.
The other thing I wanted to offer, Jolene, is that if I know sometimes people don't want to share a lot in the group and they rather have specific conversations to their business. I'll be more than happy to schedule a call with anyone that would want more specific information about what we can do for a certain industry or business.
Fantastic. I will provide the information to our listeners, how they can contact you if they would like to continue the conversation. Sue, I see that you've opened up your video. Hi, Sue.
I have.
Hi, Sue.
I had all sorts of questions for you, but I had to take a phone call, so I don't feel I should ask you those questions because I'm pretty sure they already were. So I will follow up with Jolene or Missy or David afterwards, and I'm sure I'll get them answered.
Right. And if there were any questions, Sue, that you had, we can follow up also with Federico. It is about 4:24. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Was there any other last minute questions from our audience, or did you have any last minute comments you'd like to finish up with, Federico?
Well, I guess for last comments is we are not at this point, we wouldn't be the one solution for anyone. Unless we had like a project we were going to do a lot of temporary employees, we could. But just for permanent employment, we wouldn't be, because the pool of candidates is small. So I want to set the expectations right. But we definitely can make a difference, so we can help.
Very good. I really appreciate you coming on today. I also had a lot of questions that have been answered now, and I feel like I'm able to share this information without having to go to the recording because I took good notes. I work with 11 chambers of commerce, 16 cities. There are over 450 manufacturers here in Wright County, and we are trying to be creative in helping out our businesses. So again, thank you so much, and we will continue to be in touch. And I would like to thank everybody that joined us today too.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you. Thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate your time and your interest. Have a wonderful day.
Great. You as well. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye now.
Bye.